about my path with dreams over 35 years now. I've had two primary animals show up in the dreams repeatedly, the whales and turtles, but I've been on a path with them that has led me from the inner work to the outer work in the world in wildlife conservation, both with turtles and whales, but a lot of time in Africa now with wildlife conservation. So what I'm sharing with you today is my years-long kind of gathering up of things I've written or thought about and written about. And I found Hillman's work. I think I say something about this, but I'm just going to say, I studied with Marion Woodman for several years in her leadership program. And it was there that I finally found a way to say, what are all these animal dreams about? There's so many. And I was always kind of lost as to what to really make of such a repeated animal, an animal repeating so many times in all different dreams, but the whale and the turtle. And when I read the Hillman Soul's Code, which I know got, some criticism because it was very much, maybe somebody thought, I don't know, it doesn't matter. It was really important to me because he talked about these idea of the acorn, and we're born into this world with these destiny images that reveal themselves or get discovered along the way. And that gave me a way to begin to work with the animals in the dreams, because Marion's work was about embodying the dream images and bring them through your body, through movement, through voice, through active imagination. So I was directly more connected with the dream animals. And so this is a kind of a landscape of where I've been thinking and writing. It's somewhat loosely put together, but I've tried to organize it into categories. And most of them start with quotes, because I think quotes just capture the bigger message of what I'm trying to say in my examples, rather than talking more than I need to with more words than are required. So if I'm talking too fast, or if there's a note, write a note if you have a question, or you're welcome to interrupt me. I just want it to flow so that we can just open up to the bigger conversation. So this first quote is from Jung, 1912. In the course of millennia, we have succeeded not only in conquering the wild nature all around us, but in subduing our own wildness. And this is one of the synchronicities that happened in the middle of the day as I was finishing up. And someone was helping me organize my office, and she came out with this sketchbook notebook, and she goes, I don't know what this is. There's lots of different things in it. I opened up to the very first page, and this is what was I had written in handwriting on this page. For Jung, the call to individual, and this is a quote from Robert Aziz from his book, but he's saying for Jung, the call to individuate arises from the deepest sources of life and is supported inwardly and outwardly by the compensatory activities of nature. It is called, therefore, it is a call, therefore, that is not to be taken lightly. Both inwardly and outwardly, nature strives unceasingly to bring about the realization in the life of the individual or a unique, to bring about the realization in the life of the individual or a unique pattern of meaning. And the idea of calling is at the center of my talk tonight. Having found in the unfolding of, many years, but particularly through my work with Marion and finding Hillman, at least 10 or 15 years, discovered more and more about my sense of being called. When I read James Hillman's Soul's Code, Acorn Theory, I found a way to begin my inquiry into why all the animal dreams about how to be with all the animal dreams in my life. I've already said this, so I'm going to move on. The weaving of the study of Jung, the embodied soul teaching, and experiments with Marion and the Acorn Theory template help me further investigate my calling, my fate. From Hillman, fate does not relieve me of responsibility. In fact, it calls for more. Particularly, it calls for analysis, not reductive analysis. In this model, to discover which fate, which archetypal hand. This is really in my body. Asked to be noticed and remembered. And from the introduction to animal presences, Hillman's book, Hillman writes, the presence of animals to the human psyche. I say to the human psyche rather than in, since the latter proposition would suggest their enclosure within an anthropocentrism. To leaves them unassigned. And he goes on to say, if there has been a steady line, an actual dominating narrative in my subversive service to psychology, it is the preservation of, even obeyance to, animal spirits. So when I found Hillman and all the animal passion he had, I was on I'd found my soul animal dream guy. And he says, animals in dreams can be the medicine, the representation of divinity. So I'm going to read a little bit of my story, weaving together the ideas that I've just shared with you. I am lying next to a 700-pound leatherback turtle on a remote Caribbean beach off Costa Rica. I think that's where I'm going to share the screen for a second to put up a photo. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yes, yes, we can.
So that's a leatherback turtle that is not the one I was laying next to, but is the size of a leatherback turtle, and it is on the beach I did this conservation work. I'm laying next to a 700-pound leatherback turtle on a remote Caribbean beach off Costa Rica. The largest of any turtle species, the leatherback weighs in at an average of 650 pounds. The heaviest documented weight comes in at 2,000 pounds. Leatherbacks can dive up to 4,200 feet and remain for 85 minutes. Most other turtles can dive up to only 500 feet. As far back as I can remember, I loved turtles. Even my blue glass turtle bank I had in kindergarten. Growing up in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, there were many opportunities to see, touch, and hold turtles. The creek in our back pasture on 20 acres in the country provided daily access to turtle sightings, along with an assortment of other animal beings. Given my fondness for turtles, I convinced my parents to allow me to have one of the small turtles sold at the local Woolworth store. Not understanding at the time the cruelty of the glass box of captivity piled on top of the turtles piled on top of each other. And now I was continuing this captivity in the store-bought plastic home I provided. I still hurt when I think of his suffering. I loved Sam, and I took him out often to travel the living room floor of our parsonage farmhouse. He typically made his way to the boundary of the large living room area, as I have discovered many wild animals will do in closed reserves, no matter how much territory they have. So there's one of the reserve I mostly work at is about, in acres, it's about 100,000 acres. And the cheetahs find their way to the boundary line every time. I love to hold Sam in my cupped hand and feel the sharp points of his nails when he pushed against my hand to free himself, or simply to cling on to my skin to keep from falling. After leaving my country home, heading out west to California, sea turtles began to appear in my dreams and continue to visit me in dreams even now, 35 years and counting. Guess this isn't quite as hard as I thought it would be, Lisa. This is a photo of another leatherback on that same beach. And on the left is a little more of an illustration. They're called a leatherback because they do not have shells like normal turtles. It's kind of a rough, leathery. And I'll go into a little bit of that about the turtle, but it allows the turtle to dive at those depths. Those shells would crack. And also some of its lung operation. So, so I've moved to California, and the sea turtles now have appeared. The first recorded sea turtle dream is in 1987. I am holding a baby sea turtle and telling it I will rescue it and bring it to freedom. And I'm giving you a sampling of the turtle dreams, so you just get a feeling for what kind of themes are happening in these dreams that have kept me quite awake and alive and interested. So in 95, another dream, a turtle is laying eggs by the sea. When the eggs hatch, we will help them get to the sea safely. And in 2000, on my birthday, Amy, my sister, and I, about 8 and 9 years old in the dream, are jumping into the ocean and swimming with large sea turtles. My sister Amy, who's younger than me, passed away when she was 35 and I was 36. So having her come to and swim with the turtles with me was quite lovely. Hillman, just because you have a dream animal doesn't mean you can forget about the real animal. Back in Costa Rica, I'm cleared by the research scientists to lay down alongside the body, her body, which extends beyond mine at just over 6 feet. She is now in a trance and will not be disturbed by our presence. Through the sand beneath me, the audible vibration of her breath and digging now pulse through my body. Her rhythms and mine synced through the sand we share underneath us. The darkness of the new moon night, the audible breath and vibration, the intensity of the stillness, the energy of instinct in motion. Turtle. She is pumping her eggs into a deep, deep hole. It has taken an hour and a half for her to dig her nest, her body dropping lower and lower as her gigantic flippers scoop and throw the sand out. She is lowering herself below the sand line of the beach. At the end of her lowering, she uses her tail, which reminded me of a large oil drilling machine I've seen in the fields. A large vertical drill pumping in and creating a hole more in deep than wide. So it's almost like a cylinder nest. It was a new moon and the stillness and darkness and amplification. She remained steady in her effort for over 2 hours. Stillness to movement, stillness in motion, motion in stillness. She will return to this beach 6 to 9 times through the nesting time to lay another 80 to 100 eggs each time to hedge the bets of the 1 in 1,000 hatchlings that will make it to adulthood. The scientific eye of the researcher believes this to be her first nest, noting her tentativeness, her skills still not fully efficient. Her first nest, initiation into bringing forth life, and my initiation into the direct contact with animal instinct pulsing through my body. A kind of co-initiation of sorts, a primal intimacy, perhaps in Hillman's words, an animal blessing. From Hillman. You know, people come to therapy really for blessing, not so much to fix what is broken as to get what is broken blessed. In many cultures, animals do the blessing since they are the divinities. I feel the sadness now in my work in wildlife conservation on the beaches and in African bush. Animals' horns and tusks and paws and bones are being cut off, concretized as medicine or a trophy for status. the spirit and soul and flesh is murdered.
Andrea, I don't mean to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I know you have a picture of the turtle.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I really want that guidance. So this is actually a green turtle on a beach in Mexico where I was down snorkeling because it's a big green turtle nesting. Actually, they come in to eat before the nesting. They eat, there's a special grass there. And I happened to be there on vacation just to go snorkel out among the turtles. And much to my delight, because I'd been there before and never knew this, during the nesting season, a biologist is sent out to patrol the beaches because they're having to find their way across and through tourist beach chairs. So the beach chairs are put up at night, but these turtles have to navigate through the beaches. So instead of us when we're in the Costa Rican beach, it's pitch black, no one's there, it's a research site. And we're there to patrol the beaches from poaching, because this is the biggest, the leatherback beach is the biggest leatherback, and hawksbill and green and all the Ridleys, all those turtles nest there. So on this beach, he's walking and patrolling just to make sure they're not poached. And then what we do there is put up almost like a little clothesline square around where the nest is after they finish laying their eggs. And then we date what kind of turtle and when they're laid, because they're going to hatch in about 8 weeks. So this means tourists don't step on the sand here because there's eggs. So she's been digging it, and then you can see for her, this is a green turtle. There's drop maybe 1 or 2 at a time, and they're kind of like they're a little bit smaller than a pool ball. And the leatherback eggs are bigger, and they usually drop about it'll come like 1, 2, and then 2 or 3, and then 1, 2. So they're kind of, and then this little tiny one, it was so sweet. One of the nests hatched when I was there, and that's the researcher's hand. And kind of don't usually touch them, but so that what I also learned, which I didn't know, which is fascinating, these turtle eggs, when they're ready to hatch, it takes them over a week to climb up to the top of the sand, and they're exhausted. So then they sit right at the sand level. And so he can see right that they're pushing up the sand and they're ready to come out, and they will rest there, and then they'll make their escape to the ocean when they're rested. So this is kind of under the dark of night. We're just checking out this little green turtle. That one's for a little bit later. Okay, thanks, Lisa. So I want to go on to Hillman's next idea that I found in an interview with John Stockwell, is this idea of a new cosmology. And he says, if you want to liberate animals from their Western predicament, and the first step in changing cosmology is returning to the soul of the world, thereby releasing soul from entrapment in human subjectivism. He goes on to say in the interview, my phrase in the essay Animal Kingdom in the Human Dream, in the essay Animal Kingdom in the Human Dream, that short eternal while in which there is an original co-presence of human and animal, bespeaks an experience anyone can have when playing with a cat, when close to a horse's breathing, when hearing a bird call, an extraordinary chord of communion, which I believe must also be sensed by the animal. It occurs most frequently, however, right at home, in bed dreaming. And I believe too, that this sort of experience gives us a very ancient sense of animal divinity. And he goes on to say, a change in consciousness. The interviewers asked him, what do you think about animal conservation and that whole, and he said, I don't want to go into that territory. I don't know enough about it. But he goes on to say, a change in consciousness may also begin in dreams, when the dreamer allows the fierce black dog to approach, or the snake fang to pierce her skin, and a great emotion released, a transformative recognition upon learning of a skinned pony, a drowned bird, a fish lying belly up, When these images are taken deeply into the heart as something going on right now in the psyche, my soul, the rest follows. I haven't even mentioned the marvelous dream animals that come to teach the dream ego or save it or impress it with beauty and power. So I want to share with you several dreams then after learning about this co-presence that are pretty common in the dreams I have, particularly with whales more than the turtles. So I'm going to just give you a selection of dreams that I think represent what he's talking about with the co-presence, where the animal must also be aware of you. This is, I think, my very first whale dream in January of '88. A whale is in my room. I have it full of water. She liked it when I would scoop up water and pour it into her mouth to drink. I was talking with her about how sad it would be when she had to go. We are planning how to get her from my room to the ocean without involving rough tactics of a zoo-type arrangement. We get her to the ocean. I am asking her how I would recognize her when she came through again. We both decide we will know. She gives me a short ride as she departs. These communications are just kind of happening. I don't know how. They're not like animated mouths moving and all that. 7/3 of '88. I'm out in the ocean with a whale. It's very pale and quite small. I am dipping my hand in the water and into its mouth. It cannot drink too much at once. Now you'll hear in these dreams, because it's most of the whale dreams, the idea of maybe some conservation stuff coming through, because they're often in some level of distress. And I think that's why I was so concerned about in my inner work, which I think he does reference that. I saw this as a wound in my connection to nature, because that happened with my father and my horse, and that's another story. So I did work with this as an inner figure, an inner experience that was, but uniquely, it was the whale and the turtles in that case that kept coming to me. But it becomes more, to me, becomes part of the outer path many years later, that I understood the dreams differently. When I started to think, what the hell haven't I healed yet in my inner world, that all these whales are suffering? And that's when I actually had an impromptu conversation with Dina Metzger. And I was writing about this, and she kind of had me looking a little differently at maybe these are looking for you as an ally. April 1990, a whale is beaching itself at Esalen. I call for help, but it resists my efforts and asks me not to. I acknowledge its desire to die, and I offer my hand of comfort. We have a conversation about having others stay away. Instead, the whale wants me to dance with her. I am standing by its head and looking directly into its eye. I have not in the right order. I don't want to leave. We dance, and now my eyes are closed and I'm taking it all in. 7/22/95. I get into the water to swim with the killer whale, or an orca, but it was killer whale in the dream. That's what I called it. There's a clear sense of communication. I need to allow the whale to impregnate me. It will be painful, but it's important that I do this. It has something to do with the brain or memory. When I was typing this up for the presentation, I did the math, because I knew my sister had died in November of '94. And whenever I see dates, I think about my sister. And this dream came about 8.5 months after she died. And my colleague, Ralph Quinn, who teaches at UCSC, Psych and Religion, asked me if I'd come and talk to his class about my experience with going through my sister's death with her dying with her. And I was on the fence about it, and I had the dream that night. I felt too soon, but I decided seemed impossible, but I could do it. A couple years later, there's a snake. This is a snake dream, but there's a relationship here, a co-presence. A snake is wrapping around my arm. I'm trying to hold close to its mouth so it won't bite me. We finally agree to let it crawl freely around on me if it promises not to bite. So you see, the animal is aware of me and I'm aware of it. There's just a couple more here as examples. This is 98. Whales are jumping through the water, just breaching and jumping, and two of them come close to shore, and they bring $2 silver. 1958 is one of the dates, and either 1929 or 1829. A guy who goes into the water gets the coins and gives them to Amy, who's my sister again. And one whale gets a starfish and takes a big bite. I cannot figure out the dates. Oh, I was born in 1958. I don't know the 1929 or 1829. And then one more dream that 3 months later, a ranger finds a whale and believes it to be ill. I identify the whale and ask if it's okay. The whale says yes and begins to give me a ride. It is swimming very fast, and there is a large ship coming across in our way. The whale is somehow calculating how much clearance it needs to jump over and through the ship opening between the upper and lower deck so as not to knock me off. Actually, there's two more. I'm out in the ocean with Viola and others. We come near a whale. Viola tells me the whale will want to have contact. I approach and I am petting its head, nose, and mouth. The whale says something about where it wants to be touched. I think I'll just do one more whale. This is an O2. I'm going to be going underwater to do whale calls. There's a movement involving the tongue and the lips. A couple of others are involved as well. These are orphaned whales and they are working with. It's a little scary to be calling them, not knowing when they'll emerge. That's it. I think I'm going to leave that because you probably have the idea of the co-presence. Let's see. Oh, I got to give you some whales here. This is a photograph of a mother and baby sperm whale. I met a National Geographic photographer when we were dehorning rhino in South Africa and got to know him pretty well. And I needed a really good mother calf whale photo for something, and he sent me that one. These are my blurry ones from Maui. That's a young humpback breaching. This is Don Bacchus from Fast Raft out of Moss Landing, where they're doing all the lenge feeding. Beautiful. And that's one of mine from Hawaii. Yeah, we'll get to the rhino later. I'm actually almost done here. I'm ready to just go through a few animal slides, but I want to, this is the part that I think I'm going to go ahead and record because it's just meant to be. This is the other synchronicity of the day, today. When that same notebook from the opening quote, about 2 pages later, I find an act of imagination I had done with a whale. I don't even have the date. I think it was from other things in the book that had nothing to do with anything but lists of errands. I think it was probably 2017. And I could hardly read it because I had put this blue crayon all over it, you know, the ocean, and couldn't read some of the words, but I got it pretty well figured out. Hillman also does talk about, as does Jung, the active imagination is a way to connect with dream animals without getting into identification or like there has to be this distinction between the human awareness and consciousness. It's not just you go into the unconsciousness, if you will, of you don't become the whale. You're having an engagement with the whale. Are most people familiar with, I can't see you, I'm going to pull that aside, of active imagination? Let's see. I can't, I've kind of lost you. I won't worry about that. So here's what happened. And again, I kind of follow Hillman's advice about this. I'd listened to a lot of his talks on active imagination, and he said, you know, quit asking these people or dream figures, what do you want? What can I do? Just talk to them. And I found that my approach that way just felt more real. And it was me coming to them with what you'll see here. Although I am doing this clearly because I've had a lot of communications or visits from them over the years in my dreams. So I say, to the whale that may be listening, I'm reaching out to listen to your wisdom and guidance. I want to serve you and learn from you what you want or need from me. I understand I cannot really know you, but I want to honor you crossing over in my dreams for these many years. I have not always tended to your arrivals as much as I had wished. I think I expected you to tell me what your purpose was in my life's calling. Whale, I chose you long ago. When you first entered the world, and I've always been with you, although you may not have recognized me in any form. You have traveled far, as a whale must do, moving into the depths, listening deep below the surface and singing your song. We have heard you and you have shown us love and caring, but you drift away sometimes and you must return to the depths to find us. We need you and you need us. We are sisters, your pod, when you are in the depths. Andrea, what do you mean by you are my pod? We can guide you in the deeper layers of the depths and in the cosmos. I'd never heard of the cosmos thing of Hillman at this time. That was very recent. So when I read this today, I was like, what the fuck? Whoops, recording. We are part of above and below, but you mostly know us in the below, as are you. We can serve each other. How can I serve you? There's a very long silence. You are trying too hard to know. You are on a path that will reveal itself. Your task is to keep listening, keep true to your heart that has always loved the world of animals and felt most at home in our presence. Nature herself holds us all, no matter the species. We are your connection to all wildlife, your wildlife. Andrea, I don't know about that. I don't think I can contact the spirit of your essence, the lightness in your heaviness, the ease by which you navigate the waters of the unknown. Whale. The waters are not, and I don't know, I couldn't read that word, the waters are not something to us. We have our migrations, our places to birth our young, to find food. We live on the something of the ocean, and yet we are not the ocean. We are in danger, as you see in the dreams. We have come to you to ask you to carry a lot. We trust you. We know you. We always have. But why did you choose me? How did you find me in the fields of Minnesota, so far from the ocean? We found you before your birth, before you were born to the earth, in the cosmos, the energy of the cosmos, and we followed your spirit into the body, a gentle, sensitive, quiet soul. that would find her way to nature as you find your way even when lost. We must go now, we are near. And I say goodbye. Thank you. Be safe. I think I'm going to stop there. I do have some beautiful images of animals and a few of the conservation work I'm doing in Africa. I would be, maybe we could choose to stop now if there's thoughts, questions, reflections, or I could go through the slides quickly and just kind of tell you what's happening. And I wish I could see better because I don't have the right format for you guys, but that's okay.
Well, why don't you go through some of those other slides?
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So these are just collections of turtles. People, you know, I'm the turtle person, so I get turtle gifts all the time, which I love. Let me see. Did I lose the share? Can you see these?
Yeah, we can see them.
Oh, I want to tell you this dream. I didn't give it to you, but I had a dream when I was at Marion Woodman, and I was in an office looking at a slideshow, and it was coming up slide after slide like these PowerPoints of turtles. And then at one point through the slideshow, this person on the screen in the video was dissecting them. And I went into an outrage and I told the person with the computer to get it out of my room. And just as I did that, this line of turtles were coming up through my body and out my mouth. And I had to hold my mouth. I knew that I had to keep my throat open and flexible, even though I was freaking out, so that all these turtles could come up through my throat alive. A couple years later, I'm in Santa Fe, and this statue is outside 18 feet high in front of a museum. And it's this Indian woman with all these turtles coming up through her body. And they were also coming up through the back. So that was pretty remarkable. And we would always do a I am poem at we had like 9 days intensives, and we would be working with the dreams, and then you kind of bring it to essence. And this was the I am poem that came through my turtle experience. I am quiet, ancient wisdom. I am stillness. I am earth pulsing in water. I am home. I am home. I am home. I am whole. And this is an image from Meinrad Craighead, which is titled She Who Gives the Dream. And so there's the woman with the turtle holding the turtle. I'm going to skip that. So in 2016, I went to this reserve in South Africa to do conservation work. And because the poaching was taking all the rhinos in all the reserves, this one had been able to protect their rhinos because they had more funding because they're not a government reserve. But now they were the only reserve left with rhinos with horns. So we were dehorning, I think in 3 weeks' time, over 90 of the 120 rhino. And it was very intense and very difficult. This was a mom and calf. The calf is just about the age that we won't do any younger than that, mostly because you have to dart them from a helicopter and it's going to be too stressful. What I discovered very early on, this is probably the third rhino dehorning of the experience, that I had to make a connection. There was so much going on. In 28 minutes we had, once they were on the ground, to get them dehorned, to do a forensic kit, all of it, that they were just under stress. They're half awake. They can't be completely sedated or they won't be able to, their organs can't take that kind of weight. So I would just find my own quiet moment to try to have a sense of presence and to actually apologize and to tell them that we love them and we're sorry that we have to stress them out. And I would say at least 1 or 2 or 3 a year when we're doing it, I feel that there's a co-presence. I don't always, but there's been about 3 every time we're doing it that something is happening between us. They really like to have contact right behind their ears and in their thigh and on their foreheads and down around their mouth. They're very sensitive, so I tend to just kind of be present with them in that way. Here we have to create all these forensic kits so that if the horn that we cut off is ever found where it shouldn't be, we have it microchipped and we have a forensic kit so that it's really hard to prosecute poachers because everybody's corrupt, including the judges. So if you don't have a microchip that says, yes, you did take that horn from this reserve with this data, that at least you can try to get a prosecution. And then once in a while you have this kind of heartbreaking, but kind of heartwarming image that'll come through after you've cut the horn off. You'll see a heart or something like this. And it's kind of interesting and, I don't know, striking in ways that are difficult and ways that are beautiful. I think that was one of the moments I was having. I don't know. I don't remember who took that. It was somebody on the team. This is a really cool, fun thing to share. My very first year there, the first time I'd ever seen a rhino and a rhino baby, I think it looks like, what's that cartoon, the Disney one with the big ears like that? Oh, like the Beauty and the Beast thing, although it was called something else. Anyway, they're so cute. So this is a very well-known mom rhino on the reserve. She always has healthy babies. And here he is 4 years later. That's him. I call him Leon. Most animals don't have names, but every once in a while I get attached and then I know that's Leon. Pangolins have been extinct from most of the reserves in South Africa. They are the most wildlife trafficked animal in the world. And this little guy, he was no bigger than a pen, the length of a pen. He had probably fallen off or been born on a truck of poachers and was rescued from the road. And we rehabbed him at Pinda. And one of our duties was to go out with an umbrella and walk behind him while he learned how to actually break open termite mounds for food for ants. And he had to get good enough at it that he wasn't burning up more calories than getting them from the ants. He wouldn't stay there long enough to eat. So it took several months to get him there. And then he displayed this behavior we'd never seen before. He cut out this big hole and he put himself in this den, and they'd never seen any pangolin or knew that pangolins did that. And here's these little feet. They're kind of like elephant feet. And he braced himself in there and we couldn't get him out. We had to take him back, for the night. And he gave us a good run for it there. And John, you'll recognize this guy, as will Lisa. This is Leo. He's the oldest elephant at Pinda.
Leo.
That's your guy. So he's the oldest bull there. And I think I've got a couple shots later of him that I'll show you. We're going to bounce a little bit. So I do a lot of teaching on conservation to raise funds to help the reserve. So here is some images of what this elephant here is sedated. So when they're sedated on the ground, you have to put a little twig in there to keep their air passage open. And I had an audio of the sound, but it didn't work to put it through, but it's an amazing sound to hear them breathing. And then this was a young elephant bull that got his trunk in a snare, probably, they don't try to snare elephants. It wouldn't work for the most part, but he probably was picking around in the shrub where they were trying to get it like an antelope. It's a poacher snare and it just tightens and tightens and tightens. Unfortunately, it was discovered pretty early on by one of the monitors because this bull was acting kind of odd, not with the herd, too young to be away, and discovered this. So within a couple hours, we had a helicopter and a vet and removed that. And while we were doing that, I was taking some photos of, this is their tail. It's kind of wiry. And then this is another elephant that's been sedated for, I think we were collaring it. And their feet are like cushiony, very, very cushiony. And they can kind of pull apart twigs and stuff pull bark off. They have, you can't see it on this one, but they have toenails, really. This is the newest baby that was born last year. That was kind of exciting. Another herd moving together, probably going to the water. Thought this was kind of, this is actually in Botswana. We were doing some research to try to see if we could get the elephants some borehole water drilled in so that they had water year round. Here we're putting a collar on an elephant so that the matriarchs in the herd get a radio collar. So if we need to find them and we haven't been able to track them, most everything we do just by tracking. But this case we had to get, we couldn't, the elephants will know before you even are on the ground. They know like 2 days before we get there with the vet that they're going to be tracked. And that's V. And she took her herd up to the highest point that we can't get to in a Jeep. So she's very wise, but unfortunately we had to do it. So there she is getting a collar changed. You change them about every 5 years. These are cheetah that live on the reserve. Cheetahs are one of the most vulnerable animals. There's only 7,200 cheetahs left in the wild in the world. And they are killed by just about everything. 4 cheetahs were killed at Pinda 2 years ago by the lions. They're fighting for territory. And this was just kind of a cool sun coming through this carcass that they were eating. These are brothers. Cheetahs together, if they're adults, if you see them together, they're brothers. Otherwise, they are solo animals. And females are always solitary, although people say that. And I say, they're always solitary because they always have like 3 to 6 cubs. It's a little different than just solitary. And here she's, we call in monitoring speak, this is called cheetah in 4. So it means we have the cheetah with 4 cubs. Every animal has an individual ID, and you ID cheetahs by taking photos of their cheeks, unique spot patterns, usually on the cheek. And then we do a full body shot and their tail. So their tail and their cheeks are usually the most unique. We won't be able to ID the sex of any of these cheetahs here, cubs, for another couple months. And then here they're just full bellies there, full of milk. They're not eating meat yet. And this light will keep them protected. It's grass back here. So they disappear in the high grass, and this is all you see, and that keeps them from getting hunted. Let's see. This cheetah had a surgery. She got impaled probably by a warthog. She would have died without this surgery. They don't do a lot of interventions to save animals. But cheetahs, they'll do anything they can to save them. And again, over here, we're doing some research, seeing if we can find out ways to test for exposure to TB. Because if a cheetah gets TB or any animal gets a TB, they can't be moved from reserve to reserve. And you have to, when you're in a closed reserve system, which just about everything is in South Africa, you have to diversify the bloodlines by moving the males around. So we have to find a way to be able to move them, or they'll just put a moratorium for like a year, and then you've got dead cheetahs and it's a mess. We took that cheetah, this one, into surgery. She had to recover for 8 weeks in the boma. So she's enclosed within the reserve, but she can't run or walk, and we have to monitor her. She had to have a second surgery. And the day before I had to leave, my thing I wanted to do most was to go visit her at the boma and just say hi to her. She was one of the animals I've most ever connected to. We found her. I was with the whole journey. So on the last day, we went up to say goodbye to her. And much to our surprise, embarrassingly so, as conservationists, she had 3 brand new cubs. She went through 2 surgeries and that huge thing, and she was pregnant. This is one of the male North Pride males. They have 4 lion prides at Pinda. This is North Pride. She's very pregnant here. These are her 2 subadult daughters that I watched when they were cubs. And prides live all together, and they're kind of in a mating time, so the male's around a little more. That's the subadult from the year before with her new one. Another group. In fact, this is her a year and a half before she had that cub. So it's fun to get to know the families. Beautiful little couple there, been mating. Lions mate, some of you might know that, about every 5 to 10 minutes for several days. It only lasts a couple seconds, but these are the two dominant males in the North Pride. One will be the more dominant, will be doing most of the mating, but they won't kill each other. Other males would kill each other. I think that's it. Thank you for listening. I know that was a long haul. Trying to get rid of that stop share.
Yeah.
So that's where all the inner work and my thinking about animals in our dreams, to feeling very much called to go out and spend 2 months a year in the bush doing conservation work.
Wonderful. So should I stop the recording now? Do you want to open it up to
Questions or stopping or whatever? I'm okay with whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I think I will, just to give people